Okay, tonight's demonstration is going to be a advanced hollowing deal. I wrote this program 4 or 5 years ago when I was down at Moore Norman, and we taught a class or two off of it there. I've got a little handout here that you can kind of follow along and say, hey, you missed something or something like that. But the handout's kind of for dummies that forget what I'm saying, and they can take it home and just kind of remind you. I'll probably say everything I'm going to tell you about what's on the handout. So to get it started, I had a block of wood. Let me move this back so we can see it in the camera just a little bit better. But had a block of wood, and they lived together kind of like this right here. This was a piece of ash that was maybe a 7-inch square and about 4 or 5 inches thick. Yeah, come on in.
You're going to charge me.
Yeah, but I started out with that.
Nothing's free, come on in.
Let's pause just a second. Okay, so the piece of ash actually grew up down at Broken Bow inside of the lake down there. So it's a kind of a brownish color, and like some other woods, it tends to take on a little color depending on where it's growing. The type of soil it's in and all that will change it. Some of the ash are just really, really white, and some are more like this, a little bit more browner. But it was started out about a 7 by 7 square, about 4 inches or so thick. And the first thing I did was I squared it up, then I took it and then run it through the bandsaw. And you could maybe get by with it by just running it through the bandsaw after you get it turned around. But Tom and I have tried that before, and that bandsaw will grab it and it'll throw it at you, and you'll cut your fingers up and your nose will be bleeding. All right? So it's not a good idea. That's why you want to run it through the bandsaw and cut it while it's still in a square form. All right? And then you can take it to your miter saw and miter the corners off of it. And I had a little circle cutter that I turned it round with after I got it turned off. So we're going to start here with what is going to wind up being the, what did I say, the top first or bottom? I think I've got the top. It doesn't really matter, but we're going to start on what's going to be the top. And you need to kind of look at your wood and decide that the grain kind of, as they say, kind of talk to you just a little bit and tell you which way it might look the best. So what decided this for me was my bottom piece right here has got this, it's kind of got some bark inclusion stuff going on right here. So I'm going to make that the bottom and kind of round it over. Wait a minute, I got that confused. Yeah, the other one's the bottom. I can't read, can I? So you're going to put your small face plates in the center of what's going to be your project. So this was the outside, which is going to be the very top of the bowl, and this was going to be the inside of it. So you want to put those face plates on there. I just used 1-inch screws, didn't get too big. But on this bottom part now, first thing we're going to do is turn it to round. And I hope this little lady's got enough power to do this. I think it will. So when you're turning uneven wood, this has got a little crack in it too, I've noticed. So if it comes off, Bruce can catch it, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to round it out, and when I round out, I like to start here on the bottom and come this way as I'm rounding. If you just get right here and try to go straight across, you're going to be there all night, and your wood's going to chip and tear and mess up a little bit. So by starting here in the middle, first thing I'll do is I'm just going to do a draw cut across it and get it running flat this direction. All right? And I do that with the bottom edge of my chisel. I'll come up here and I'm going to touch it. You can see it jumping. close. Then we're going to cut a mortise down in the bottom. And a mortise is where the chuck will go down inside the hole and squeeze out, all right? A tenon is where you clamp down over something to pinch down on it. So we're going to cut a small mortise here. To know how big your mortise needs to be, you can take your jaws of your chuck. You can close those jaws up pretty much and leave about 1/8 of an inch or so between the jaws. That way it makes a complete circle. They build these in one piece and then they just sort of like cut them in 4 different pieces. So there will be a place that it'll make a nice circle. And that's about how big you want to be. Since we're going to go inside and clamp out, I need to measure and see what I've got right here. Have my ruler somewhere handy. And looks like I need to be a little bit over 2 inches, maybe about 2 1/8 or 2 1/4. All right, so I'm going to guesstimate where that's at. I'm going to draw a line, and another one, and then another one, and I'll see which one of those 3 lines is the closest to where I want to be, and that'll tell me where I need to make my hole at. So right now I need to go to the outside one, all right, so that it will be big enough to accept the jaws. I'm going to do that with a regular bowl gouge, and I'm going to start out here, kind of out where I want it to be. I'll get rid of this. It's in my way and yours both. So I'm going to start out here and lay my chisel flat. Bring it around, cut down, and cut in, and then go straight across. And I'm going to turn totally around and come back. Start in the middle. This needs to be deep enough that it fits on your chuck well. Doesn't have to be real deep. At least 1/8 of an inch is a general rule, all right? And stop somewhere around 1/4. I'll explain it in just a second. So this is a dovetailed chuck, and if you look at it closely, the outside edges are like a dovetail, about a 7-degree dovetail or thereabouts. And I've got a little skew set up that I can clean that up. It is important that we clean up down in the inside of this where these jaws are going to seat, because that's where we index everything from. And then we want to cut that little 7-degree taper so that it's like a dovetail joint. And you know, dovetail joints are about as tight and as good as they get. So I'm going to set this up here. I need to raise my tool rest just a little bit so that the skew will hit kind of in the center there. And I'm just going to lay it to where this edge of the skew is square and with this bottom of this mortise right here. Running nice and smooth, so it should index rather well. And can you see that on the TV pretty good? Yeah. That's approximately 1/8 of an inch. That's about the minimum of what I would like to be. It doesn't have to be terribly big. Then before you go any further, if you want to, you can even try your chuck in there and make sure that it fits. And I'm sure it will. And then that way when it comes up and screws out, well, it'll be really good and tight. Now then we're going to create a base for this to set on. The part that will actually set on the mantle or the table or wherever we decide to set this little clothes for. So I'm going to make sure that this surface here is nice and flat and smooth. Dipping just a little. And I'm only interested about maybe 5/8 of an inch there. Then I'm going to turn around and come with my tool, and I'm going to start coming off and taking off this outside edge. The shape of this is basically a gourd shape, all right? It's kind of what it's going to look like. You know, when men first woke up and decided they're going to eat, drink and stuff, the gourds were laying around, and that's what they had, all right? So that's what we're going to, shape that we're going to have here. I know there's a couple of you out there that's fairly new, but when you're holding the bowl gouge at it, you want to either turn it over here to 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock, all right? The flute I'm talking about. It cuts best at either 10 or 2. So I'm going to hold it over here to at what would be my 10 o'clock position if I were looking at it, and bring it down and set it there, and that positions the flute almost perfect. I'm going to have to put a face shield on, so just pause it a minute.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to start in here. I'm just going to bring this back around this way. I'm not going to really worry about this out here that's bouncing up and down. And I may need to speed the lathe up just a little bit. Need to move my tool rest just a little. Do what?
What speed?
Oh, I don't know. As fast as it would go to low gear, at about 800. I would rather be up to 2,000, but I don't think this little lathe has got enough horsepower to get me that many RPMs. So I would have a piece that I could show you what it's going to look like, except last month at our show and tell I gave it away. We didn't have enough giveaway stuff, so it went away. All right. So anyway, we just have to guess. So I'm going to cut a. So what I've done here is I've cut a little, I guess you could call it an OG cut right here. Looks like a little S turn, and that will let the vase or the pot sit right here, and it'll look like it's kind of floating up above the table slightly. It won't look quite so heavy and kind of like a beer mug. If it's all square bottom, it looks really heavy sitting. This is going to be a little bit lighter. And there's another reason for that. So I was over at Charlie's this afternoon. He's got a huge old piece on his lathe. And if you set this in here, Charlie, and you put your mortise in here, you need to cut that mortise deeper than what this OG is, so that your chuck is down below that. That way when you chuck out, you're chucking the whole bottom of the part and not just right here on the edge. If you don't get it deep enough, then you're going to break that little section out right there if you get a catch. All right?
I went about a ½ inch on mine.
Do what?
I went about a ½ inch on mine.
Yeah, you got a nice deep one. And the deepest you can go with that mortise, your jaws will tell you. So you'll want to index on the edges right out here. And then this first groove is as deep as you can possibly go. If that's just a $1/4 inch, that's as deep as you can go. If you go deeper than that, it's gonna not going to seat properly.
My chuck's different than that.
That what?
My chuck's different than that.
This is a Vicmark chuck, and I think you got the Hurricane, but it's all the same. All right. So I'm going to continue now, and I'm going to come out and work on the edge of this just a little bit and make it round. Let it get up to speed here. by starting in here and working out, you don't get near as much chips and tear out as you would if you just started out here trying to round it out. And another thing is if the grain of the wood is running up and down, like this is the top of the tree and here's the bottom, so the sap lines are running up and down in the grain. And whenever I come across to cut the end grain, I get some tear out. And I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. But if you turn what we call downhill, each part of that, the grain is like a bunch of straws. And if you cut across them, and you cut too much this way, then you're going to rip and tear, all right? But if you come up at an angle, the tall one will support the shorter one, and you won't get quite as much tear out. I'm going to stop just a second and bring the speed up on this. I've got it fairly roughed in. I like to get it running a little bit faster. By running at a higher RPM and moving my tool slower, I can correct any of that tear out that just happened. All right? So did you see it kind of get shiny? That was because I was getting rid of all that rough tear out that I had. I still got a flat spot. I'm gonna have to make another pass at it. But I was also riding a bevel. And when you cut wood, it opens the grain up. And then if you ride that bevel, it closes it back. It's kind of like burnishing it as you go. I'm gonna get rid of that flat spot. Now I'm just going to kind of go back in there and kind of round that corner over just a little bit, smooth it out. We're not after a finished product right here, we just want to get it close. So that looks good enough to me for right now. We're going to pause the camera and I'm going to take this off the lathe and I'll come back in a minute.
Okay.
So I've taken the screws and the faceplate off of my bottom part of my project here. We're going to place it onto the jaws. And I want to push in the center of it and come out and snug up. Then I'll go halfway around and snug it again. There's a couple of gears in here, ring gears and spire gears, and you throw it off the center, it can loosen up a little bit. So on green wood, it's really important. Dry wood's not so much, all right? So now I got it back on here, and when I turn it on, we'll see how good of a job I did of turning my mortise down in there. It should run true and straight, and a teeny bit of water. right? Not much. Just a little bit of wobbling going on. So we're going to hollow this little guy out here now. And excuse me. I'm going to start where my tool is on the center line. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to dig a little hole and I'm going to make a cut. And each cut is a practice for the next one. And I'll continue to do that until I get the bottom turned out. Move this stuff out so it doesn't vibrate so much. So laying flat on the bevel, screaming down. This piece of wood now probably 8 or 9 years, so I know it's just rock hard dry, you know, there's no moisture in it at all. See that? Good enough on the TV. So I'm going to come on back out here and continue to cut this until it's ½ inch or so wide. And then we'll kind of finish out the inside of it. So I kind of made a little undercut, you see what I was doing back up in here, so that my top is going to come on here and it's going to round on over. And the center of my project should be just below this blue line. All right. So by making that, and I forgot to bring a depth gauge. So it's like about, I've still got about a ½ inch or more in the bottom of it. Make another pass or so. Now I'm going to flatten this. Well, it'll be the blue surface. Just going to get it nice and square. Then I brought a sanding stick. And I'm going to use the sanding stick to sand it a little bit so I know it's nice and square and level. Board out here is doing a little fishtailing, you know you're not square. Alright, but that's pretty nice and square.
What size bow gouge are you using?
What kind of bow gouge?
Is it ½ inch?
Yeah, it's a ½ inch bow gouge. Thompson brand. I kind of like them. So pretty much the way I want it. Later I'm going to finish this bottom off a little bit nicer. So I'm not worried about getting terribly deep tonight. Demonstration, I don't want to make a funnel out of it, right? So, if we were gonna sand this and finish it, we could do that right now. I think I got enough time. Just a little bit of light sanding going on. I'm not gonna try to make it perfect. I'll probably give it away at Christmas time for a demo. And if you got a bunch of tool marks or something, you may want to go in there with a round nose scraper and smooth them out. And if you don't have a round nose scraper, I suggest you get one that's got some beef to it. You know, the thicker they are here, the less vibration you're going to have, and the smoother job you can actually do. And it works. All scrapers should work with the handle slightly higher, maybe about a 10 or 15 degree angle uphill. But I have got a small reverse grind on the top of this, and it's not very much, just maybe a 1/16 of an inch, which puts that 15 degree angle down. That way when I go in there, I can go in with my level, with the tool level. And that's just kind of like a big old eraser. If you make a mistake when you're writing a letter or whatever, erase it and start all over. Well, this just kind of cleans up the tool marks, okay? So I think we're going to call that good for right now. I'm going to pause it just a second. Here it goes. So I have removed the bottom part of my project, and I've put what's going to be the top on here. And my circle cutter, I drill a small 1/4 inch hole in here, and then it just goes around the bandsaw. So that's why that's little holes in here. But I'm going to hollow that out now with a Forstner bit, and need to get my, go ahead and pause it just a second. I have put my Jacobs chuck where the tool rest, or the live center was, and we're going to drill a hole now. It's 1.25 inches in diameter, and I'm going to make it at least 1.25 inches deep. Okay.
Question, Dwayne.
Yes.
Does it have to be 1.25 inches? Can it be?
Well, this hole is going to determine the size of the neck, and it could be 1.5 inches, or it could be 1 inch.
If you don't have 1.25 inches, you can use 1.5 inches. Right?
That's exactly right. It's just going to increase the diameter of your project. And I want to build this, and it's going to be in 2 halves, and I want to put it together, and I don't want anybody to know where I put it together at. So if you can reach back up in there and feel it, you need to be in the NBA playing basketball, all right? So you have a finger about yay long, you know. And poor old boys can reach up there and grab a ball and just hold on to it. So on a Forstner bit, you just want to go ahead and bore it out and get the job done. Don't sit there and go real slow and overheat your bit. You'll ruin the bit and get your project hot, and it stands a chance of cracking. So I may need to go down to a slower RPM, all right? We'll see what happens here. Tom, we need to do some TLC with this. But I've got that almost deep enough. I'm just going to cut it a little bit deeper. Now then, we'll pause it just a second.
Okay.
So now then we're going to shape the top of our project so that it looks like the top of a gourd here. We're going to go more or less straight down with it for about 1 inch, and then I'm going to turn and come making the top part of a project. So to get started, I guess I turned off and on too fast. computer has to reset. There it went. Didn't like what I did. Somebody reversed the lathe. Did you do that, Tom?
I didn't touch it.
He was over here messing around.
Okay, I'll take the blame.
Yeah. Oh, that switch, that's what that's for.
I'll let you say it, babe. I'll take it.
So I'm gonna raise this up just a little bit. We're just gonna do some cuts across the corner of this. Move my tool rest here just a little.
It's not a robot.
Do what?
It's not a robust, you know.
No. So, beginning to get the shape here that I want. I need to decide what size I want it, and it's getting close, but I've still got a lot of tear out. That's because I was just roughing it out really fast and hard. And it's still got a big old flat spot. I'm going to turn that flat spot off. So I'm going to create a tenon out here on this end. That's why it's left a little large this time. That way I can reverse it and put it on my chuck and hollow the inside of it out. So I'll cut that tenon right now. And again, it's got a 7-degree taper there. Now that I'm going to pause the camera and we're going to turn it around and I'm going to hollow the inside of it. So we hollowed the inside of this and I cut that more tenon on the end of it. And if you over tighten it, you'll break that tenon out. So we just got it tight enough that it's going to stay on there pretty good. Now then, I'm going to take a close measurement of my project. And I'm going to measure the inside diameter is pretty critical, and it is 4.5, maybe 4 5/8 at the most, all right? And the outside diameter is about 5 5/8. So 4 5/8, 5 5/8. So that must be a 1/2 inch thick, huh? So I'm going to get my pencil, and I'm going to guesstimate where I think that 4.5 inches is, and then we'll measure across it. And that's 4 1/4, so that'll give me a line to go by. All right. Now I'm just going to go to hollowing it out a little bit. So again, it's the same cut that we hollowed that bottom part out with. Speed is your friend, all right? You seen how it was jumping around, chipping and everything when I had it running slow? Speeded it up 3 times a day, all right? So here in another pass or two, I'll begin to run into that 1 1/4 hole I cut back on there with my fork a little bit, and I'll open it up. I've seen the light. See it there? There it is. So I'm going to go ahead now and cut it out to that 4 1/2 inch diameter I marked on there. So I tried to slow what I like to call my feed speed down. That kind of allows me to make a smoother cut, and it shouldn't have that much tear out in it now on the inside edge here. And it doesn't, surprisingly. All right? Kind of got a little sparkling going on in there. So pretty sure that I've got to go bigger. And I'm not quite 4 inches yet. We're going to take another pretty good pass out of there. So the inside of this is going to look kind of like the outside, so I wanted it on the outside just to be a gourd shape, all right? So this is the opposite of that shape. So it's just another ogee, all right, right here. And I've got about 1 inch or so of woods before I get to the end of my tenon that I've got on there. So that's about right. My diameter is what I need to worry about now. And I am just right at 4 1/2 inches. I think I just cleaned it up a little bitty bit. I'm going to use a little different tool here, sharper tool. This is a 3/8 instead of the 1/2, Charlie. I can make a little smoother cut with it. So I kind of like the inside of this. And I'm slightly over 4.5. I'm slightly over 4.5 here. It should be the same size, really close. So I'm going to cut the outside down now and start to kind of shaping the outside diameter only right here. And I'm 5 3/4. Want to be 5
Now,
maybe 5 5/8.
could you hold that one up there and draw a line around it for your?
I probably wouldn't be able to get it centered properly, but I could, yeah. It kind of guesstimation here anyway. This is not the finished cut, all right? This is just getting it good enough to glue together. So I am about an 1/8 inch all the way around too big. So I don't think I can see that on the camera, but I begin to shape the outside of the portion here. And I'm slightly over, that's about 5 3/4. So it's going to be about a 1/16 inch all the way around, bigger than this piece, but that's close enough, all right? So here we would sand and do any finishing if we were going to do that. And I'm going to get my little round nose scraper and smooth the entry of that hole up right there. Just kind of soften it. Don't want it to be very sharp. As you get hollow and you go to getting thinner, your project will begin to kind of vibrate and ring like a bell. All right, so that's why I've left it a little thicker right now. We'll glue it together and it'll be one piece, and then I can make it smaller. So I kind of like this. We'll finish the glue surface up here just a little bit. And again, I'm just going to do a couple of little draw cuts. Hit it with a sanding stick. I generally like to sand at a little bit slower RPM than while I'm turning. You can actually sand at any speed you want to. People prove that all the time. But if you sand at a little slower RPM, you don't overheat everything. All right? And again, if you get your wood too hot, it's going to tend to crack a little bit. And it's just better if you slow it down and do a little bit better job. So I've got that, should be a pretty good glue joint there now. Let's pause it just a second. So I have removed the top section from the chuck and I've replaced it with the bottom section back on here now. I'm going to put my live center in here. Then I've got a cone that will go on my live center. And this will help me center everything up. These are pretty nice live centers. 2 or 3 of them on the market. This happens to be the Robust, since I've got a Robust lathe. But one-way makes a really nice one too. This is actually a one-way cone. But this will come in here now like so, and fit up inside that little hole that I just cut in there. And that'll put everything back on the same plane. All right. Now then, I need to loosen it off just a little. And we're going to line the grain up. I think that's probably it. See my little football right here? Yeah. And then my grain kind of comes up and comes back down. See that? So it's either there or it's going to be over here, and this one doesn't look as nice as it does on that side. So I'm going to take my pencil. I'm going to put a little index mark on both projects so that I can see where I want to line it back up with. All right. Oil. So I bought this glue the other day, and it is a speed set, Titecon speed set. I really like it for doing my segmented work. The hole is plugged, of course.
So once you put the glue on, about how much time do you have to work with it to get them together?
This will set pretty quick, probably 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And we can turn some if we use the cone. All right?
So you would not try CA glue for this?
Oh no,
Okay.
oh no. CA glue
Too fast.
is a poor excuse for glue most of the time whenever you're putting larger projects together. It gets hard like glass, and any vibration at all will break the glue joint. All right, where this Titebond stuff is more flexible, but it's designed more for bigger projects.
Now you're just putting the glue on one of the
Just
surfaces?
putting glue on one side for right now, and I'll put it up here, smear it around. And if I've got any places that didn't get glue, I can address that. But it looks pretty good. The index mark so I can see it. Kind of wiggle it around, get that glue set. Put a little pressure on here. And that's about it. So I'm just bumping it around here so I can find its center. All right. Thank you, sir. Any questions about what we did up to this point while we're waiting on this glue to dry?
No.
Come on, guys. I need something.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, we're just going to let it sit here for a couple of minutes. Why don't you go ahead and pause the camera until it sets. So I've had that glue on there, and it's set for maybe 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, not very long, but it's says it's speed set, so we're gonna see how it sets, all right? I'm gonna continue to shape now the top of this. I'll be cutting that little tenon off that I put
Do
up
you
here.
recommend tightening your lock on your tailstock so it don't move out?
Do what?
Do you recommend your tailstock?
This
Yeah.
lock? Yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, Charlie. I probably should do it more often than I don't, you know. But I'm gonna shape the top of it a little. Just from memory is all I'm going by. Just kind of remembering what I did that shape. And this is my favorite shape of all of them anyway. So I kind of like this little Southwest design stuff. I'm going to make it look like it's all one piece here now. I need to come from the inside out or I'll get a lot of tear out here, okay, if I don't. That's looking pretty good. The glue joint's almost disappeared. You still see it a little bit. We're going to hide it here even more in just a minute. Work on the bottom just a little. So, if you were going to power sand it, this would be the time to do it. And by that, I mean putting a 3-inch disc or something on a drill and getting after it and sanding it. You can get rid of a lot of it. You can see here I've got a lot of tear out. That was because I was doing a draw cut with my tool. I need to get in there and clean that up with a little 3/8 bowl gouge and bring my speed back up max. should have gotten rid of most of that tear out. And I believe it's pretty well all gone down in here. I've got a little on the turn right out here.
So what's the name of your glue that's used again, and where did you get it?
It's a Titebond brand speed set, all right? So we got Titebond original 2 and 3, and this is just another one of their merchandising.
And where did you get it?
I got this at Woodcraft,
Okay.
but it sets up in almost nothing flat. I like it for my segmenting because I can put a piece on and hold it for about 5 seconds and move on. You know. Still a little rough right in here. And since I'm not going to do any sanding, I'm going to go ahead and finish it up here. Touch it just a little bit, smooth it. Take a small round nose scraper and clean up the transition between the pot and the neck. Now we're going to decorate it up a little bit. So, why don't we pause it just a second? So, we have examined this and the glue joint is pretty good everywhere except for right in here. Alright? Now I'm going to put a little pencil mark on that glue joint so I can see it. I'm going to turn it back on. And I'm going to take a little small 1/8" beading tool. And we're going to cut into that glue joint. Well, it disappeared. I'm going to have to look at it again. Where'd it go?
Turned it so fast it flew off.
Now maybe I can see it. So I'm going to set this edge right here on that glue joint, and I'm going to cut a bead on this side of it, alright? But this is going to go down in the glue joint. And the trick to these little beading tools, if I got a good anchor right here, I get that sucker up here and it ain't going anywhere, alright? And you need to operate this as a scraper, so you need to operate it handle high on the center line. So that's kind of more or less where I've got it. Go straight in, and no movement whatsoever. Get it where it's all the way down, and I'm going to rock it ever so slightly. Make that nice little round joint on it. Okay? Then we're going to come up here, maybe 3/4 of an inch or so, and we're going to put another bead up here. Now we're going to do what we call raising the beads. Alright? So I'm going to take my little 3/8 bowl gouge. And I don't think I need that right now. See better without it. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set up here a ways away, maybe a 1/2 inch or so away from my bead. Ride my anchor, or ride my bevel. Raise my handle and I see my cut come in there. Right there. And then I'm just going to go aim for the bottom of that bead without cutting it. And then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing back this way. Come back over here, grab it. Remember, that's my glue joint right there. Come down on the other side and raise it just a little bit. What do you think, Bruce? Not bad, huh? So, now then, we're going to decorate it just a little bit more. I need to slow my RPM down, so we're going to pause it and I'm going to change the belts.
Okay.
So I have decided I'm going to go ahead and cut a couple of beads up here on the neck before I slow it down. Just decorate it up a little bit more. And I need to have a bead up here that I can use my inside of my chuck and squeeze down on. Alright? So I'm going to actually take my skew, if I can find out what I did with it. Yeah, hiding. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut that little 7-degree taper, a very small one right here. That should be enough that I can chuck onto it, alright? Then I'm going to take my sortie tool. Use that. Now, if you try to use these beading tools with too slow a RPM, that's exactly what I'm doing. Sometimes you get a little tear out. So it's better if you got a little speed if you're going to use some kind of a beading tool. So, let's pause it now and I'll put my, well, no, I don't have to. I've already done that. I've already done that. I'm going to take my little Robert Sorby spiraling tool. And I'm going to set this to where it's running at somewhere around 400 or 500 RPM, pretty slow, and back away from it. And I'm going to put a cut right here. I want to operate this tool with the handle slightly high again, all right, at the center line of the project. And if I go in there, it's going to start to turning and spinning, and I'm going to bury those little teeth down in it. And then I'm just going to hold it there for a second. Get them buried really good. Then I'm going to move it left and right here just a little bit. That'll cut a nice little spiral around it, okay? Then I'm going to come out here where our glue joint's at. We're going to do the same thing. I got to back away from it about 1.5 inches. So I cut 30-degree angle spirals around all of that. Now I'm going to loosen this off. I'm going to turn it to the opposite 30 degrees. And then we'll make little diamonds out of it. I won't have to cut nearly as long because I've already got some depth in here, all right? See the little diamonds? Snake skin, all right? I'm gonna come in here now and I'm gonna do the same thing up here. What do you think? So now then we're going to finish shaping a little bit right in here. I've kind of got it cut down into that bead. I'm going to smooth this out, smooth my bottom up a little bit. But I think we'll pause the camera just a second. So I've got two different burning wires here. I've got a pretty fat one and a pretty thin one. And I think I'm going to use the fatter one on this project. And we're going to turn it on, bring the speed back up a little bit, and hold this burning wire down in there, and it causes friction heat. And as soon as I see the smoke flying, I know that I've got a burn line around it. Smoking. Smoking.
Don't touch the wire, is it?
No, hot as a branding wire.
Well, you're gonna move it. Don't do that.
There's a couple of places I can't get to. There's a couple of beads in here that I can't burn. I would normally use a piece of formica and burn those areas, but I will try to do it with my wire. I don't know that I can have any success or not.
Yeah.
Did that one anyway, didn't I? I just don't have my formica with me. So, we'll just call it, play like that's burning, all right? Let's pause the camera just a second.
Okay.
So, we managed to get this one line burned here. I'm going to go ahead and just smooth up the bottom a little bit, and then we're going to reverse chuck it here. Shape looking a little better. It's pretty important to get the form correct. If you don't get the form correct, it doesn't matter how many lines you burn or how much detail you put on there. You look at it and say it's ugly, you know. So it's pretty important to get the form correct. So I'm going to reverse it, and going to chuck now on that little bitty end that I told you I put my little 7-degree taper in. Chuck down in there.
Yeah.
and it should run fairly straight. Let's remove this off of here. So I'm going to clean the bottom of this up now. Make it look like I like for it to look. It's really nice to have one that you don't have to change the belt on too much.
Turn the knob.
Well, this one's got a speed control, but it doesn't have enough variance between the really slow and the faster speeds. Get it humming a little bit better. Now I'm going to cut from the inside out on this so that I don't have so much air out. And it's important that I keep all my pressure pushed back to the chuck. Because if I try to do a pull cut, I'll pull it off of it, all right? So I'm going to just set up here and I'm going to take some baby cuts. I don't want to get in no big hurry. So now then, they'll never see where I chucked it, right? People say, well, how do you hold it? With my hands, right? So I'm going to push back around this way. So I'm pushing toward the chuck, not away from it. Like that little ocean back. So it looks like it's kind of floating a little bit. Hit it with a little bit of sandpaper. I feel that crack. So I'll probably take this home and put a little color on it. I think I kind of like a little turquoise coloring and maybe some yellows and blacks and blues. I don't know what I'll do with it, but I'll make it look kind of nice. But I think that's pretty much the end of it. For you guys that are new, try it, all right? You said you got a piece of 6-inch railroad tie or something, go home and cut it in half and try making a clothes form out of it. So I think that's it.